Well, hey folks, Real Honesty with Joe Reynolds, a 25-year reflection on the WWE Raw episodes from August 1993. It's been a couple months since I've done one of these. Had to slam the June and July episodes into the month of June because I was going to be so busy in July, and I was going to be busy for the beginning of this month because of New Japan G1 shows. So I want to thank everybody that has stuck with me. Really do appreciate the support for the channel. Just like to put that out there just before I get these reviews started. So these 3 episodes is weird. I took a look at the log of shows, and after the August 16th, 1993 episodes, there's none until September 13th, 1993, which I think means that Raw was preempted, or they just didn't put those episodes up because they just didn't really like them. I don't really know the exact reason, but I know that these 3 episodes hyped up the whole thing for SummerSlam, especially Luger versus Yokozuna. Holy fuck, did they hype the shit out of this. Really weird, though, that if they did record those episodes up to SummerSlam and recorded any episodes from the beginning of September, that they didn't bother putting those up on the network. But anyway, 3 episodes here and a few noteworthy things. A lot of matches really didn't mean much of anything, but there was one in particular that was pretty good, and I'll get to that in a bit. But starting with August 2nd, 1993, recaps of Doink challenging Savage, which would actually be the good match that I'm going to talk about here in a bit. Vince and Bobby Heenan on commentary because Savage was preparing for his match with Doink. Steiner Brothers defeated Dwayne Gill and Barry Horowitz in a quick squash match. And you had, and I'm just going to sum it up right here in these 3 parts. You had Luger, it's like a Who is Lex Luger interview piece, and it was in this episode, the next episode, and then another episode he talked about his early life, being a shy, awkward kid, playing football, using roids, but not using roids anymore, or whatever. My opinions about Lex Luger are well documented. I do not like Lex Luger. I do not respect Lex Luger. He was always a much better heel than he was a babyface. And I just never cared for the guy. He never came across as genuine to me. He just never did. And of course, there's a whole thing with Miss Elizabeth and him not admitting the stuff that he did. So yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that. So anyway, yeah, it sounds a little bit angry, and everybody's got somebody that they don't particularly like. So yeah, that's my opinion on Luger. But they did these interview pieces. My God, Vince was pushing this shit so hard with Luger, trying to be the face of the company, the made in the USA Lex Luger, and then they fucked up the whole thing in SummerSlam 93. Anyway, Adam Bomb defeated noted mullet owner, Tony Roy. And, I don't have anything against Tony Roy. It's just really, besides having that name and being a mullet wear, I didn't really know much of anything else about him. Adam Bomb beat him pretty quickly. Then Randy Savage versus Doink, and this was a good match. This was a really good match. Savage was able to get a lot out of Doink. Matt Bourne, who was playing Doink at this time, really did excel as the evil clown. I thought really had something. It's a damn shame they didn't stick with him being a heel more. But Savage and him had a good little match, and I say good little match because at one point you had a little Randy Savage come out and it distracted Doink, and Randy Savage managed to get the victory, and that was good stuff. It was actually a very good TV match. I do recommend you guys check this out, even if you don't have all the stuff like as far as like the hype before this. If you just see the little bit, a little bit of recap at the beginning of Doink challenging Savage, it actually just sums up this feud perfectly. Savage had enough of Doink's antics and wanted to shut him up. And it was a good TV match. It was really well done. And yeah, recaps 1, 2, 3 Kid beating Ted DiBiase on, I believe it was Superstars, a wrestling challenge. It was one of the 2. I couldn't be bothered to really remember all that, but that was a pretty cool moment. 1, 2, 3 Kid getting a pretty decent push here. And DiBiase doing the job, making 1, 2, 3 Kid seem like the gutsy underdog that just shockingly beat the cocky heel. Good old school storytelling. Imagine that working. Bobby Heenan introduces Jim Cornette, introducing him as the greatest manager of all time. Cornette and Bobby Heenan trading compliments back and forth. Really good interview. Recommend you guys check this out. Love Jim Cornette. Love Bobby Heenan. Cornette has always said that he would gladly be the second best manager of all time because Bobby Heenan's the best manager of all time. I tend to agree with Cornette, even though I think Cornette maybe downplays himself just a little bit. Bobby Heenan is the greatest manager of all time. Yeah, Cornette's number 2. That's pretty obvious. But it was really, really cool to see these 2 guys here. And you could tell they really did enjoy working together. They didn't get to work together much, but this was a pretty cool moment. Then you have Mr. Perfect defeat some jobber. I don't remember who the jobber was. I mean, I think it was L.A. Gore. I mean, I don't really remember all that much. He'd been on a few things. He was like a jobber version of Magnum TA. Just look-wise, I mean, nothing against Magnum TA at all. But yeah, Mr. Perfect beat him. They had the whole Lex Express thing. They had a lot of ways to hype up Lex Luger being the next guy to beat Yokozuna. And really, besides, this was a notable episode for Savage and Doink and Jim Cornette being introduced on WWE TV. That was pretty cool. Yeah, the whole Lex Luger stuff. If you guys are fans of Lex Luger, you guys will love these 3 episodes because he's all over the damn place. And then we go on to the August 9th, 1993 edition, Lex Express footage, again pushing this whole thing hard. Savage, Heenan, and Vince on commentary. Tatanka defeated Mr. Hughes in a match and went way too long. I never saw the appeal of Mr. Hughes. Nothing against the guy personally. I just never saw the appeal with the guy. Tatanka beats him. Okay, whatever. And they had dubbed in crowd noise. They had like dubbed in boos. I mean, and now granted, it could have just been the venue. Maybe that's just how the acoustics sounded, but obvious dubbed in noise is obvious. And this was really obvious. Because I'm sure there were some people booing, but I don't know if it was that loud because it wasn't really a notable match. Even though Tatanka was hugely over. Even though he should have won the IC title at Mania 9 because otherwise it just made him seem ridiculous. And then he just plodded along until Ludwig Borga, of all people, ended his undefeated streak. Another interview with Lex Luger. It was more pushing for him to be the next guy. Bushwhackers and the Macho Midget that was introduced last week versus Brooklyn Brawler, Blake Beverly, I thought it was Bo Beverly, but Blake Beverly, versus Little Louie, little southern midget guy. Unpopular opinion, I never really cared for midget wrestling. It's not that they aren't good athletes, it's not that they don't have their place and they don't have their market and they don't have their appeal. I just never cared for them. They are really good athletes. I will admit that there was that 6-man midget match or mini match at 98 Rumble, I believe. It was actually not that bad. But yeah, just to me, I never really cared for midget wrestling. I mean, I know you're not really supposed to call them midgets. But again, that doesn't mean that they aren't good athletes. It's just never been my thing. Just wanted to put that out there. This one went on way, way too long. I mean, and Brooklyn Brawler took the fall to the Macho Midget. Whatever, it was what it was. Luger Yokozuna contract signing. Jim Cornette is brought back out and is now the American spokesperson for Yokozuna, which fit. Fuji being there was fine. Fuji was the devious one, did do well with Yokozuna, but the problem was Fuji's English wasn't bad. It just couldn't get the point across enough, and Cornette was brought in there to get great heat on Yokozuna. Boy, they were really trying so hard to make Luger the babyface, and he just wasn't genuine at all. Maybe it was the stupid mullet he had. I don't know what the deal was. Maybe it's the suit. Maybe it's the fact the suit was probably, more charismatic than he was. Luger just wasn't believable, but the crowd was on fire at one point, but then again, this was the 90s. People were kind of dumb, and I grew up in the 90s. Even at a young age, even at 12, I think while Luger was getting this push, I'm just like, I just didn't believe it. Because one, I had already moved on from Hogan about a year or two before, and I'm like, well, this guy isn't even as good as Hogan. Why the hell is this guy here? I didn't like this guy when I first saw him in WCW, and I was a kid then. I think it was 7 when I first saw Luger in WCW, and I'm like, eh. But anyway, you had Razor versus some jobber, quick squash. Cornette introduces the Heavenly Bodies, Dr. Tom Pritchard and Gigolo Jimmy Del Rey, who actually were a pretty good team. I'm not going to say a great team. That's just my personal opinion. But they certainly worked well together, and they were good in some markets. They beat up Bobby Who and Mike Bucci before he became, or Bucci, I think is how you say it, before he became the Nova of Hollywood. Simon Dean, that's who he is. But anyway, not a bad episode. It was pretty cool, though, that Cornette was on commentary at one point in the August 2nd episode for the Mr. Perfect match, so that was pretty cool. But yeah, so they're doing some really good hype for SummerSlam, and all during this, they had the SummerSlam report with Mean Gene Okerlund to hype up the card, including the Undertaker Giant Gonzalez match, and oh dear, that match was bad. Yeah, pretty damn shit. And I remember SummerSlam 93 pretty vividly. I might actually do a short 25-year reflection on that, but it just wasn't very good. It really, really wasn't. But anyway, so then you move on to the final episode in August, on the 16th of 1993, where they were really pushing the whole thing hard, including the SummerSlam, the Summer Spectacular that we're going to have, where it was going to be Yokozuna versus Hacksaw Jim Duggan, the Steiners versus Money Inc. in a cage match for the tag titles. There was some good stuff. There was some good matches that they had on here. I really wish that was on the network. Maybe it's in the Coliseum video section. I haven't really checked that recently. But yeah, Ted DiBiase versus the 1-2-3 Kid. This is the rematch. DiBiase wanted his revenge. IRS and Razor Ramon both banned from ringside. Razor Ramon was on the phone, so he was not even in the building on the phone, which means he was backstage probably. And DiBiase beat up 1-2-3 Kid for a while. 1-2-3 Kid came back. IRS got in there to interfere, even though he was banned from ringside. DQ. Steiner Brothers run down to even the odds. Run off Money Inc. to hype up their match they're going to have. And there's also, you had a double intersecting storyline here because you had Money Inc. challenging Steiner Brothers for the tag titles, and then you also had the Steiner Brothers facing the Heavenly Bodies at SummerSlam 93 in a pretty good tag match. And then the Head Shrinkers defeated two jobbers. Gee, I wonder what was going to happen. Of course the Head Shrinkers are going to win. Then Mari Jannetty defeated Bastion Booger, and this is nothing against the man that played Bastion Booger, but I hated the gimmick. And I know it was supposed to be disgusting, but this was in a long line of gimmicks. TL Hopper, Man Mountain Rock, and a lot of shit that Vince came up with. The Goon, turning Bill Irwin, one of, WCCW stars, into a friggin' hockey player. That was pretty ridiculous. But yeah, I hated the Bastion Booger gimmick. Mari Jannetty got the victory. Bastion Booger was not really used all that well. I think he was better as the Monk. I think he was really better as the Monk. But anyway. Money Inc. They have an interview to hype up their cage match for the Steiners. Even though they just had a face-off before. You would have thought they would have had the interview to open the show, then have DiBiase versus 1-2-3 Kid and have that big schmoz. I would have actually done that differently. Maybe they actually shot it that way and just spliced it together. I mean, it's entirely possible. The crowd did seem to react differently. Men on a Mission defeated Iron Mike Sharp and Barry Horowitz. Yes, Mabel, both of him. And Men on a Mission was super over for a while, but the fact that they never got a tag title run of any length really just shows that Vince didn't have that much faith in them. Or maybe it just wasn't their time. I don't really know. You would have had to have gotten 2 tag title belts from Mabel. Sorry, the guy was just insanely large and not in a healthy way. Another Lex Luger interview was what it was. Bam Bam Bigelow defeated Rich Myers, and they kept having SummerSlam hype and all this stuff. So overall, for the Cornette stuff, for the the SummerSlam hype, for the Savage Doink stuff, this is worth checking out. These episodes are worth checking out, though I will admit the August 16th episode, maybe it's probably the weakest one. But it still does have some good stuff. So anyway, that's what I got to say. Do you agree? Do you disagree with what I said? Like, share, comment, subscribe. Twitter link in the description. It's been Real Honesty with John Ritland, and I will see you soon.